this is Jen from Windrose Fiber Studio. I'm really excited to bring you today's tutorial. Today we'll be crocheting Happy Flower, which is an amigurumi that I designed for my son. Just like her name, Happy Flower has a very sunny disposition, very positive, but she's also very curious. She asks lots of questions and really likes to learn about the world. We have quite a few materials for our project today. I will be listing them all in detail in the description box below. It's optional whether you embroider the eyes or if you use plastic eyes like these. I've also decided to work this up in a double knit or a size 3 yarn. You could just as easily use a worsted weight or a size 4 yarn and the same size hook. So let's grab our 4mm crochet hooks and start our project. We'll start off our project with the head. We begin with a magic ring. For round 1, we will work 6 single crochets into our magic ring. Mark the first stitch of each round. This is just a nice habit to get into when you're working in the round. That way, if you happen to lose count, the worst case scenario is you pull back a few stitches and go back to the beginning of the round. At the end of round 1, you'll pull that magic ring closed, and then you'll be ready to move on to round 2. For round 2, single crochet increase around. This means that you'll be working 2 single crochets in each stitch around. Anytime you see single crochet increase, it simply means to place 2 single crochets in the next stitch. You'll notice that the video speeds up as I'm working the rounds. I'm just trying to manage our time a little bit, but if you would like to slow down the video, go to settings and you can adjust your playback speed. At the end of round 2, we have 12 stitches, and now it's time to move on to round 3. Our repeating pattern for round 3 is to single crochet and then single crochet increase. You'll repeat this pattern all the way around, and at the end of round 3, you'll have 18 stitches. At the end of round 3, I like to take just a moment to weave in our beginning tail. Now we can jump right back in with round 4. Our repeating pattern for round 4 is to work a single crochet, then a single crochet increase, and then another single crochet. You'll repeat this pattern all the way around. If you're an experienced crocheter, you'll know that right now we're just making a classic circle. I am varying where I place the increases so that it is more of a true round shape and not a 6-sided shape. And we're working in multiples of 6. Here we are at round 5. Our repeating pattern for this round is to work 3 single crochets and then a single crochet increase. Repeat this pattern all the way around. This is also the round where I forget my stitch marker. It's a good thing I'm keeping count. Here's me realizing I forgot my stitch marker. For rounds 6 through 8, you'll simply single crochet in each stitch around. Each round will have 30 stitches. We have just time traveled to round 9, where we start to decrease our way back down. Our repeating pattern for round 9 is to work 3 single crochets and then a single crochet decrease. To work a decrease, you'll insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then you'll insert your hook into the stitch after that, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then yarn over, pull through all 3 loops on your hook. At the end of round 9, there will be a total of 24 stitches. Here we are at round 10. Our repeating pattern for this round is to single crochet, then single crochet decrease, and then another single crochet. Repeat this pattern all the way around, and at the end of round 10, you'll have a total of 18 stitches. Our work is starting to get a little tight, but we have one more round to go before we stuff the head. For round 11, you're going to single crochet and then single crochet decrease. Repeat this pattern around for a total of 12 stitches. I love placing a stitch marker in my loop when I remove my hook, and that way if I happen to pull on my working yarn, it doesn't pull out any of my work. That's just a nice little tip. And then I jump right into stuffing the head, but honestly, if you want to use those little plastic eyes, this is a good time to put them in before the stuffing. If you're using the plastic eyes, you'll see in just a minute that we're placing our eyes right around the 5th row below the top center of the head. Today I'm going to use embroidery floss to make my face, but you can also just use a color of yarn. The happy flower that I showed you at the beginning of this video, I used the stem color to also make her face. While I was filming, I sort of set up these plastic eyes to give you an idea of what this would look like, and then I thought, you know, it would be even better to actually show you a happy flower with the plastic eyes. Here she is, super cute, so this is a great option. And these eyes are placed about 5 rows down from the very top. So if you count the rows down, between the 5th and 6th row is a very good place to place your eyes. You can decide how big they are, how far apart they are, what kind of expression you want your happy flower to have. But I also wanted to show you an embroidery version because I don't want you to have the plastic eyes in order to make her. And also the very original happy flower, the first one I ever made, had embroidered eyes. So let me show you how I make those. This is where those straight pins come into play. If you are a very confident sewer, or if you're not super particular, you can eyeball this if you don't have the pins. But for me, it really helps me get an idea of where I'm going to do my stitch placement, and it just gives me a little bit more confidence going in. I have not done a lot of embroidery in my life, so anything that kind of boosts my confidence, I'm all about it. So the eyes are basically wide upside down V shapes. They're very much inspired by anime and Pokemon, which of course my son loved at the time. So when I was inventing Happy Flower, I was very influenced by Sunflora and other Pokemon. So I am placing these pins at the points where my floss is going to go in and out. And I'm really taking the time to be happy here. I'm using your basic black cotton embroidery thread, and I haven't divided it up. I'm using all the strands of thread that it comes with. So you can see I'm passing my needle up through the opening at the bottom, and it's coming out of the pin on the far right, and then I'm passing it back down through the top pin and going underneath the fabric, and then coming out the pin, the very next pin on the left there. And you can take the pins out once you've passed through that point to get them out of your way. And then I go back to that top pin, or that top point of my upside down V, and I pass it underneath the fabric to the next pin to the left. And then you'll go back down through the top point to the far left pin, come back up and go back down through the top point, and then you can pass it back down through the bottom of the head. If you're not happy the first time, there are no knots. You can pull it out and try again. I always feel a fair amount of pressure when I'm making the faces because it's such a huge part of the personality of your little amigurumi. So go ahead and take your time. There's no pressure here. When you're happy with your eyes, we're going to move on to a little smile. I'm going to pass the yarn back up through the bottom and come up one side. Decide how wide I want my smile to be, and then pass the needle through the fabric from the opposite side and back out the first again. I'm sort of being careful not to split the threads of the embroidery floss. Once I have the width of my smile and I'm happy with that, I'm using my straight pins to pull down the thread a little bit into a gentle curve so that happy flower has a sweet little grin. Now I'm using the blunt side of my needle to pass under the floss a couple of times, which will make the outline of the smile a little bit more pronounced. And then I'm using the sharp end of the needle to anchor the smile at the first pin. I'm going through just the tiniest bit of the crocheted fabric below, and I'm trying to make sure that it's directly below the embroidery thread so that you don't see it. I'm not even picking up a whole piece of yarn. I'm picking up a ply of the yarn below the smile. And then I'll wrap it a couple more times using the blunt side of the needle, and then I'll anchor again at the next pin. and then 2 more passes with the blunt end of the needle, and then I pass the whole needle through the next corner of the mouth and back down through the head opening. I find that the face stays in place really well. I'm just going to pass my needle through the bottom and out the side and then kind of trim that, and that'll hide this end inside of the head. Now our little face is done. She's happy. She's ready for some petals. You can see that the very top of the eyes are right about at the 5th row from the top middle of the round. And now the last thing we have to do is to close off this opening. So for round 12, we're going to work single crochet decreases around. You can see that I'm kind of taking the time to pull up any slack because I really do want these stitches to be close. It can feel a little challenging to work in the round when it's getting this small. Just take your time with it. It's only 6 decreases, and before you know it, you've finished your last round of crochet for the head of Happy Flower. I'm going to trim my working yarn, leaving enough length for a little bit of sewing, and then you can see I'm just going to pull the loop out. I'm not working any sort of slip knot because we're going to use this working yarn to close this opening. So grab your yarn needle, we're going to thread our yarn, and then we're just going to whip stitch through these 6 stitches that we just created. So you'll just be feeding your needle through each of the 6 stitches. And when you get all the way around, you'll pull on your working yarn and it'll cinch this opening closed. It's kind of acting as our magic ring for the other end of the head. And then you can go ahead and weave in the rest of this tail and clip it off. We're going to be attaching the stem of the flower here, so you won't be seeing this part of the head. I'm holding this face up to the original flower. You can see on this one I did a little V-shaped mouth, so really you can have some fun choosing how you want your Happy Flower's face to look. Okay, it's time to give our flowers some petals. We'll be making 5 of these. Make sure you leave an 8 to 10 inch tail for sewing later on, and then chain 6. You'll notice that I'm making sure that my chain is not too tight because I will be working into it. And we're going to work our first row into the back bumps of our chain. Start by working a single crochet into the second chain from your hook and then into each chain across. This row will have a total of 5 stitches or 5 single crochets. By working into the back bumps, this leaves a very neat bottom edge that has 2 threads of yarn, and we'll be using those threads later to attach our petals to the flower and also to attach another feature. At the end of row 1, you'll chain 1 and turn. For row 2, Work a single crochet increase in each stitch across. Remember, that just means to place 2 single crochets in each stitch. Row 2 will have a total of 10 stitches, and when you come to the end, chain 1 and turn. Rows 3 and 4 are both the same. You'll single crochet across, then chain 1 and turn. Each of these rows will have 10 stitches. For row 5, you'll work a single crochet decrease, then 6 single crochets, and then you'll decrease over the last 2 stitches for a total of 8 stitches in this row, and then you'll chain 1 and turn. For row 6, we'll work a single crochet decrease, then 4 single crochets, and then another single crochet decrease. This will bring our stitch count down to 6 stitches in row 6, and then once again you'll chain 1 and turn. You might be sensing a pattern here, because when we get to row 7, we're going to start with a single crochet decrease, and then we'll work 2 single crochets, and then we'll end with a single crochet decrease. Row 7 has 4 stitches. Once again, at the end of this row, you'll chain 1 and turn. For row 8, you'll work 2 single crochet decreases, then you'll chain 1 and turn. At row 9, with only 2 stitches left, you'll work 1 single crochet decrease, and then you'll finish off. You can cut your working yarn and then feed it through the loop on your hook. I'm laying the petal flat so that you can see that the front side of your petal will have the beginning tail on the left. You're going to thread your ending tail and weave it in on the back side of the petal. When finished, your petals will have a gentle curve reminiscent of true flower petals. And now all you need to do is make 4 more. It's time to sew our petals onto Happy Flower's head. I'm centering the first one right above her face, and I'm going to center it just in front of that very first round. Once again, your straight pins come in handy to hold your petal in place. I'm going to take my time with this first one and really show you what I'm doing here. I took one pin out so you can see these are the bottom stitches of our beginning chain, and each has 2 threads shaped like a little V. We'll be working into the back one of those threads or into the back loop. I'll start by passing my needle through a thread on the head of Happy Flower. You don't need to grab a lot of yarn, just a piece of yarn will do. So I'm going to go under the head and then through the back loop of the first stitch. Remember, there were 5 chains, so there'll be 5 whip stitches holding our petal onto the head. And I'm just going to space them out evenly. And I'm really going to take my time and make sure that I'm attaching this petal through the back loop only of that beginning chain. I want to leave that front loop unworked because we're going to be using that in just a few minutes. And you can see I have a little bit of a harder time seeing this last stitch. So I just take the pin out and get a good look at it. Then I can fold it up and I can really see the stitch and make sure I'm going through the back loop. And that's really all you need to do to secure your petal to Happy Flower's head. If I pull back the petal, you can see I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 front loops. We're going to use these to attach filaments to the flower. I'm weaving in my tail end on the back side of the petal, but I would like to strongly recommend that you hold off weaving in your tail ends until you have all of your petals in place, and that way if you need to move a petal, it'll be really easy to pull out those whip stitches and adjust your petal placement. I actually end up needing to move one of my petals, so I really wish I had listened to my own advice. So go ahead and stitch your petals onto the flower's head, but save that weaving until the very end. I like to place the bottom petals next. Happy Flower has 5 petals, so these will go just to the right and left of the bottom center of the flower. You also want to place these petals just in front of the first row, not at the very center, but you're going to work just in front of the center. I'm making sure that I have room for my side petals. And if you look at the bottom, here's the center of the bottom, and I'm going to be sewing the petals on just in front of that. I need to leave room for sewing on my stem a little later on. I also want to remind you that the front side of your petal is facing you when the beginning tail is on the left, and we're sewing our petals on with the wrong side facing us. And the other thing to keep in mind is you really want to center your face in the middle of your petals. So try to have your petals sort of be equal distance from your face. I'm going to go ahead and speed things up. You can always go back and re-watch me sewing on the first petal if you need a little bit of a review. Otherwise, I will see you when we have 5 petals on our Happy Flower. Okay, I know that was crazy fast, and in the spirit of full disclosure, it's the petal on the left side of the face that I relocated. It was a little closer to the eyes on that side than on the right side, so I took the time to move it. Now, you could stop right here and call Happy Flower's face complete, And actually the very first happy flower I ever made, I didn't add the filaments, but I really love this step. So we're going to use all of those unworked stitches to add a very cute accent. So now it's time to break out your mohair. This is fine mohair. You really only need one skein. I think it looks good to double it up. So if you have one skein, you'll need about 4 yards doubled. I happen to have a second skein here, and this is just mohair from my stash, but I will link a mohair below if you need to go mohair shopping. I kind of like the little bit of white in this one. They definitely go great together, and I just think that white adds a nice little highlight. To make the filaments for our flower, we're going to be using the loop stitch. Just in case this is a new stitch for you, I wanted to show you on just the regular yarn before we start working with the mohair, because I think it'll be easier for you to see what I'm doing. So I've just crocheted a few rows of single crochets to give me a little swatch to work on. And now let me show you how to work the loop stitch. To create the loop stitch, you'll insert your hook, and instead of just working a yarn over with that yarn that's right there, your normal working yarn, you're going to grab the yarn in the back and the yarn in the front. So you're actually going to be grabbing both threads and pulling it through the loop on your hook. This creates a loop at the back of your work. You can then take your finger out and adjust your loop to size. We're going to want our loops fairly small for our happy flowers. And then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on your hook. You can see here we have a little loop. It's on the back side of our work and it's secured in place. Let's watch again. I've inserted my hook. I'm grabbing the yarn in the back and the yarn in the front, both threads. I'm adjusting my loop size, and then I can even hold that loop down while I yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on my hook. So what if your yarn hold looks more like this? It's the exact same stitch. You're still going to insert your hook and wrap it around both threads, the one in the front and the one in the back. Then adjust your loop size, and then you can hold that loop down, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops on your hook. The most important thing to remember is that you're grabbing not one, but both threads and pulling them through the stitch. That's all there is to it. Are you ready for the mohair? Let's go ahead and give it a try. Okay, so here we go. Now each petal is going to get 5 stitches. Remember, we're working into those loops that we left unworked. Now you could join with a loop stitch if you felt comfortable doing so, but I just thought it might be easier if we join with a single crochet. That just means to insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and then go back into the same stitch and work your first loop stitch. If these stitches feel a little tight, I think it's really helpful to use the fingernail on the pointer finger of your right hand to kind of help that stitch go over your hook. And then the other thing that you want to focus on is to try to get your loops roughly the same size. We can stop after each petal and have a little look at our work. If this feels really challenging to you, just look at how cute it is when it's all done. I truly think it's worth it, or I wouldn't be putting you through it. So at this point, you're just going to work 5 loop stitches in the front of each petal all the way around until you've completed the whole flower. And then you'll cut your working yarn, pull it through the loop on your hook, you may get a little distracted just for a second or two by how cute your little happy flower is looking. And then you'll weave in your beginning and ending tails, working them in opposite directions to draw together the beginning and the ending of the loop round. As you watch me finish off the head of Happy Flower, I just want to say that kind of the hard part is behind us. It's all downhill from here. We just have a stem and 2 leaves to make. I don't even think that anything we've done is particularly hard, but I know I always get a little stressed about making the face because that seems really important to me. And I can tell you, I'm not 100% happy with the mouth. At some point I might come back and work that again, but it's not bad, so I'm going to move on for now. And I hope that you're happy with your happy flower, and let's head on to making the stem. So here we are on the stem. This is our last magic ring for this project. You'll make your magic ring, and then for round 1, you're going to work 6 single crochets into your ring and close the ring. I continue to mark the first stitch in each round. I'm going to speed up a fair amount through these rounds on the stem and leaves because I know by now you're a pro. You don't necessarily need to see me make every single stitch in the pattern. Just pause the video and take the time you need, and then we'll move on to the next round. Round 2, our pattern is to work a single crochet increase in each stitch around. Remember, that just means to place 2 single crochets in the next stitch. Round 2 will get us up to 12 stitches. For round 3, our repeating pattern is to work a single crochet and then a single crochet increase. You'll repeat this pattern all the way around, and at the end of round 3, you'll have a total of 18 stitches. Okay, we are time traveling to the end of round 3. I think the end of round 3 is a really nice time to stop and go ahead and weave in your beginning tail, especially because this is a 3-dimensional shape, so that beginning tail is going to eventually be inside of your stem. So it's just nice to go ahead and get this length of yarn out of our way. And then we can move right on to round 4. For round 4, the repeating pattern is to work a single crochet, then a single crochet increase, and then another single crochet. You'll repeat this pattern all the way around, and this will get our stitch count up to 24 stitches. For rounds 5 through 10, you'll just be single crocheting all the way around. It's very helpful to continue marking the first stitch of each round. Each of these rounds will have 24 stitches, so I will see you at the end of round 10. Okay, we're cruising right along into round 11, where the repeating pattern is to work a single crochet, a single crochet decrease, and then another single crochet. You'll repeat this pattern all the way around. This will reduce the number of stitches to 18 stitches in this round. And now we'll finish off our stem with rounds 12 through 14. Once again, we're just going to be working single crochets all the way around. Our stitch count for each round will be 18 stitches. And now I'll see you at the end of round 14. When you cut your working yarn at the end of round 14, make sure you leave enough length for sewing. To reduce the height between this last stitch and the body of the stem, I'm going to work a slip stitch into the next stitch, and then I'll pull my working yarn through and create that slip knot. Our stem is now complete, and it's time to attach it to the flower. But before we do that, I'm going to put a few pebbles into the bottom of the stem. This makes the bottom of the stem a little bean bag. It makes it easy for Happy Flower to stand up and to support the weight of the head. Honestly, I thought that was going to go better than it did, so let me pick up my mess. We filled up the stem about a third of the way with little pebbles, and now I'm just going to fill it up the rest of the way with my stuffing material. I'm using polyfill for this project, but there are other choices. You could use some wool roving or some cotton or even scraps of yarn. We'll be using the ending tail of our stem to sew it onto Happy Flower. You'll attach the stem to the flower in the center, just below these two bottom leaves. And when you sew it on, get it as close to these leaves as you possibly can. Happy Flower is designed so that she's slightly looking upwards towards the sun, but you don't want this angle to be too exaggerated. Once again, if you'd like to slow down the playback speed, you can do that in settings if that's your preference. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and whip through the whip stitching of the stem to the head of Happy Flower. When you're done, you'll go ahead and weave in that loose end. Take a moment to admire your Happy Flower. She's almost done. She's got a nice sturdy stem now. The back is very simple, and if you look at it from the side, you can see that Happy Flower is looking up toward the sun. We are so close, but let's make 2 leaves to attach to Happy Flower. These are kind of like her arms. They add some personality. You're going to leave a 12-inch beginning tail to sew the leaves onto her stem. We're going to start this one off a little differently. You'll chain 6 and then you'll slip stitch to the first chain, and this forms a little ring of chains. And then you're going to chain 1. For round 1, you'll work 8 single crochets into this ring. Continue to mark the first stitch of each round. It's very helpful. And you'll see as I'm working these 8 single crochets, I'm kind of rotating the ring around to evenly space the single crochets around this beginning ring that we've made. For round 2, we're just going to single crochet around, so this is an easy one. For round 3, our repeating pattern is to work a single crochet increase and then a single crochet. Repeat this pattern around and we go from 8 to 12 stitches. The leaves on Happy Flower are hollow. They can have a little stuffing added to them, but I leave them hollow. I just like to work them in the round. It makes them more three-dimensional and also gives them a little more substance. The beginning tail might be going up through the leaf and you can pull that down through the bottom center. For round 4, you just single crochet around. Your stitch count will still be 12 stitches this round. Moving on to round 5, our repeating pattern in this round is to work 3 single crochets and then a single crochet increase. At the end of round 5, you will have 15 stitches. At round 6, we start to decrease the size of our leaf. You'll work 3 single crochets and then a single crochet decrease. At the end of round 6, there'll be 12 stitches. Here we are at round 7. Our repeating pattern is to single crochet and then work a single crochet decrease. At the end of round 7, you'll have 8 stitches. It does start to get a little cramped as we reduce the size of our leaf. Just take your time with it. Round 8 is kind of a weird one. For round 8, you're going to work 1 single crochet. I'm going to show every stitch in this round. Here's our first single crochet, and then I'm marking that stitch. Next, we'll work a single crochet decrease. And then we work another single crochet decrease. You can see I'm rotating the leaf around and opening it up and making those stitches as easy to get to as I possibly can. Now we're going to work 1 single crochet and there should be 2 stitches left, and we work a final single crochet decrease. This will reduce us from 8 stitches to 5. For round 9, we're just going to be working 1 single crochet decrease. Go ahead and flatten your leaf, and this single crochet decrease will be worked through both layers of your leaf. So you're going to go through the front and the back of the leaf shape. When you're done, you can go ahead and cut your working yarn over and pull it through the loop on your hook, and then you can weave in this ending tail. You'll repeat this for the second leaf, and then we'll move on to attaching our leaves to Happy Flower. Here she is. She's very excited to get her arms. You'll attach them on either side, just a couple rows down from the top of the stem. And you'll just be working whip stitches around the opening of the leaf. I attach mine straight up and down and at an even distance from the top of the stem, but you can put your own spin on it. You could have the leaves be at different heights or different angles, whatever personality you would like to give your little happy flower. If we compare the two happy flowers that I've been showing you, you can see that they're very similar in size. The worsted weight is a little bit bigger overall. I am going to leave links for all the yarn you see here in the description below. I will also include timestamps so you can easily navigate this video. Amigurumis can be a little more involved, and this one certainly is. If you have any questions, just please leave them for me in the comments below. I am always happy to help. And here they are, our happy flowers. They are ready to add a little sunshine to your day, and wouldn't they make a sweet gift for a friend? I hope you enjoyed this video. This was a big project, but definitely a labor of love. Happy Flower has been in my life for a long time, and I'm very pleased to share her with you. If you enjoyed this project, please hit like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new design. I post videos every Tuesday, and I'm really looking forward to sharing even more patterns with you. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.